I gotta watch this show for the podcast this week, the next week, and the next week, and there's also Kingdom Hearts that's out, and I gotta do this too. Fuck!
Or you could just be like me and let the backlog consume you.
I mean, why don't you? Why don't we all just do that right now? Stop doing everything, guys. It's not worth it. Let all of those things build up till you've wasted a bunch of money and time and then get to them.
I mean, that's what I do.
How's that working out for you?
I have a lot of things to entertain myself with, so...
I mean, that's fair.
きっと約束だよいつかまた同じ笑顔で
Welcome, one and all, to the box, the Annie Chat Box. Of course, this is episode 99, and I'm your host, Gregory. But I'm not alone this week. Naturally, we have to my immediate right in the next room over our producer extraordinaire, Cass.
I don't really do anything anymore. Everybody else does. I just kind of stand around and make sure everybody does what they're supposed to do, I guess.
That's the role of a manager, yeah.
Okay, sure.
You're the manager of the podcast.
I'm the macrophage. Or the helper T cell. There, that makes more sense.
And in the same room, we have Dom.
I don't do anything. I do nothing for this podcast.
You're here?
Except be here and comment on shitty anime.
Whoa! Shitty anime.
And good anime, like...
You talk about good anime too.
Occasionally.
You recommend a shitty anime, Dom.
I also recommend a lot of shitty anime because apparently I'm an expert in that field.
Where does G Gundam rate?
G Gundam is a masterpiece.
Okay.
But we haven't watched that and I haven't recommended it yet.
Not yet.
Because I only recommend shitty anime. I can't recommend G Gundam because it's not shitty.
I want the horse Gundam, Dom, please.
I want you to ride into recording one day on a horse Gundam.
That would require a lot of work. I don't have
but
a horse or a Gundam or a horse Gundam.
I think if Dom rode in on a horse in general into the apartment, that would be quite a fit to get into the apartment.
Yeah,
into the area.
We can barely fit in this little like right in front of the mic. We're kind of like huddled together in two chairs, like awkwardly. If I was on a horse, that would make this very difficult.
And continuing over across the country, we have the precious cinnamon roll of the podcast, Cammy.
Anone, thanks again for listening to us today.
You're so cute.
And I get presented as a cinnamon roll. I'm like, I have to be cute or it destroys the presentation that everyone builds up.
Yeah. And across the globe, we have, finally, the gentleman of the podcast, JoJo.
Hello. We describe Cammy as a cinnamon roll, but then she gets these moments where she sort of hulks out and just, like, rage mode.
You see, everybody says that I'm the yandere, but I'm about 90% sure Cammy may be the most yandere of the entire bunch. Because she loves everybody, but if anybody tries to touch her friends, oh no. Or sometimes, oh my.
So you're saying that Cammy's a macrophage?
Well,
Yes.
Cassie's the macrophage.
We can all be macrophages.
I'm just a platelet that keeps a dagger in her pocket for emergencies.
That'd be
Damn.
cute. I need, like, fan art of that, like, stat.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, what if it's just her playing with, like, white blood cells, like knife, and everybody's running after her? It's like that like thing that went viral where it's like a kid, or like, what do you got there? And he's like, it's a knife, and keeps running.
That's terrifying.
Only it's white blood cells knife in her hand. Oh, that'd be perfect. God, I wish I could draw.
You can.
That's the irony. Cass can draw.
Very
She
well.
just chooses not to.
All right, and before we begin our review of the day, we're going to have a main topic, not about anime, surprisingly, but could be related to anime. What Cass and Kami came up with before recording. Balancing your real life with being a podcast host. How do you micromanage time in a busy day?
Okay, so I can start off and just say that for those who aren't in the know, I recently started grad school. And thank you.
No one else
So-
applauded you, and that makes me really mad. Everybody applaud Cami for going
Oh
to
my
grad school. Y'all fuckers aren't in grad school. Thank you.
I just started grad school. I am attending full time. I don't currently have a full time job. I'm picking up side gigs as I can, which is pretty tricky. Money is tough. But to go back to the point, I am finding new ways to balance my schedule along with watching anime. And one useful tip that Cassie informed me of, thanks to Verve, is that they have an offline viewing availability for some of their shows. So I've been downloading episodes offline onto my iPad to watch on my commute because I have a rather long, like, hour and a half-ish commute. So it's a good way to kind of make use of that idle time to watch some anime.
We thought ours was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. But with the student pass, I don't have to pay, so that's good.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And the only unfortunate thing also is that my shuttle only arrives at certain times, so I'll usually get to campus with about like an hour's free time. So what I've gotten in the habit of is just eating food and then again, like watching some anime if I'm not going to like a club meeting or meeting up with somebody, anything like that. And not too long ago, though, I realized that sometimes this can be kind of awkward because I was watching Bloom Into You, which I've just kind of been watching on my own time for the sake of boredom. And I was watching it on the bus, and then everything was fine. It's a very sweet, like, nice little show. It's gentle. Like, I didn't think there was anything I had to worry about. But then the two main characters are alone in a storage closet.
Oh, that scene.
And it's really sweet. Like, it's not anything inappropriate, but like I just had the impending sense of like people sitting behind me and people sitting around me, and I was just like, if they glance, they're gonna be like, what the fuck is she watching? So I just kind of like curled in on myself and like tried to make sure nobody could see what I was doing.
I know the scene you're talking about. I know why you might
Yeah.
have felt like maybe I don't want
Yeah.
anyone peeking over at this exact moment.
Yeah, because, I don't care if people see me watching cartoons, whatever, but if you just saw the scene that I was on, like, it would have been easy for people to assume I was just watching some, like, hentai or something. Not hentai, it wasn't that explicit, but still.
No.
I just, like, I was like, okay, maybe I should just, like, be aware of the show's content and the episodes that I may be watching beforehand. And it was kind of a funny, awkward scenario that I just felt like I could share. But so far, it's going pretty well. I've been able to balance watching anime, like when I am just kind of doing busybody things, like doing my hair in the morning, which takes an hour because I'm ridiculous, or, commuting on the bus or something. That's a great time to absorb some anime. And it sure helped me a lot. Along with that we've run into a lot of shows now that I watched seasonally, so I've already finished them and I have a little breathing room to get ahead. That's been pretty useful for me. Cassie, you've also watched anime like on your commutes, right? Have you ever run into like an
Oh.
awkward scene?
I have actually, more that made me look like a fucking lunatic in public, but
Ooh.
this was a while ago when I actually still worked. I think for some reason I was coming home late. I think it was when I was still at Symbio. I think I like stayed over late to do overtime or something. And this was the first time I'd ever watched Flip Flappers, which as some of you know is one of my favorite shows, and I love it very much, and I will parade it till the day I die because it's extremely underrated. Go watch Flip Flappers. It's a really great show. Anyway, so that show likes to jump genres. It's one of the things that makes it really interesting and entertaining. Well, one of them decided to take on a horror-esque kind of tone, I suppose, and I was sitting there on the train by myself, at like 8 o'clock at night, which is super late for me, by myself, and these fucking like terrifying creatures turn around and go Gokigenyo.
Yeah.
And I about jumped out of my seat. I was so freaked out, and a couple of people looked at me like, "Is she okay?" But
No.
but it was a fun story that I keep in my back pocket and share from time to time. I think that's the only one that was like really extravagant.
I never considered like jump scares. Yeah, that's a whole nother like territory.
Well, especially when you don't expect it. Like Flip Floppers, for all intents and purposes, is a light-hearted magical girl show in the most broadest of ways of describing it, I guess. But I wasn't expecting that, and it definitely kind of made me jump. And I'm pretty sure if anybody saw what I was watching over my shoulder, they'd probably be like, "What the hell is that?" too. So. But yeah, we try and squeeze in watching stuff in our commutes. Another thing that I've been trying to do, and I was doing before, and I'm going to try and get back to doing it when I get off work early now, is I would watch anime when I was working out on our treadmill.
Oh yeah.
I'd balance my phone on this little holder on our, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a little dock thing that you can put your phone on. Also known as not really a dock thing, but more like a little red button that you can kind of position your phone against and pray it doesn't fall. It works out for me most of the time. But you kind of sit it there and you can just like watch anime as you're working out and walking, and it's good. You're killing 2 birds with 1 stone, 2 priorities with 1 stone, 2 things you don't necessarily always want to be doing together at the same time with 1 stone. It's pretty fun. Totally recommend.
Do you?
No, what I recommend is downloading all the really good anime openings that get you pumped up, because that's what I used to do, is download anime openings or EDs or songs from shows that like really get me pumped up when I would go to the gym, and I'd listen to those. I listen to anime music at the gym. That's what I do whenever I actually go.
I would too. I listen to anime music doing dishes since I don't work out, but I need to fix that pretty soon. But we don't have a dishwasher, so doing dishes is like the most annoying thing in the entire world. So Get and I'll just put on like a playlist of like 500 best anime openings or whatever and just roll with it.
I do that.
Craig, honestly, with your schedule of having to like consume content, and by that I mean like you not only are watching stuff for our podcast, but also you are like playing games, watching things to discuss for Save Our Progress, and you work a full-time job. How the hell do you function?
That's the brilliance of everything. I try and do everything as soon as I possibly can, and dedicate days to doing things. Basically, Mondays are hang out with Zach day. Tuesdays are mix the episodes of any chat box. Wednesdays record Save Our Progress. Thursday is my free day. Friday is my free day. Just basically know what I'm interested in and what I really want to play / watch. Admittedly, this winter season, I've only really watched two or three shows, and I'm still continuing the ever growing or ever progressive task that is trying to watch all Precure, the entire Precure franchise, and I'm slowly hitting a burnout stage of that task, but I'm getting there eventually. Just basically take it one step at a time and realize, man, time flies when you're having fun. Or you think to yourself, man, I'd rather be watching something or playing a game rather than being at work at this current moment. But hey, that's work for you.
I think Sorry, I was just going to say with you, Craig, I think the other thing is when you sit down to watch anime, you go hard. You don't sit down and watch one episode of anime. No. You sit down and you watch like 16 episodes of anime.
With the podcast, can we try to get ahead, and that's kind of good and bad to a point where I'm like, fuck, I watched this show 4 or 5 months ago. What happened again? And sometimes that's easier to remember than others.
That's why you take notes. I bought myself a notebook. That's another thing to talk about being a podcast host and watching anime is watching ahead and knowing to take notes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Check the wiki and then use Google Doc. That's what I've been doing.
So that's interesting. We all use different mediums because, Cassie, you have your Pusheen notebook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do use it. Lately I haven't had to because I've watched stuff like right beforehand and I just like make some mental notes because I can do that. But if I'm trying to get ahead, like what I'm doing right now with Hanebado, like I've got to write down a bunch of notes, and then I'm also going to be watching Hyoka in the next week, so that Pushini notebook's getting a lot of
love.
use.
Yeah. And then Craig said Google Doc. I keep my phone on me, and literally, as I just notice, I'm thinking something like, oh, the art does this well or something. I just whip out my phone, go to my notes tab, and then just start like formatting a notes structure.
I literally use Notepad on my computer.
I mean, hey, that works too. I mean, it's actually, John, do you watch anime? Because you seem to be home a lot.
Yeah.
So do you ever have commutes where you need to watch anime on the go, or do you mostly do your viewing at home?
I mostly do it at home. In fact, I don't even have Netflix I don't have anything installed on my phone to be able to watch it on the go. Thinking about it, I probably could fix that. Because now thinking about it, episodes of Ruby are quite short. That'd be fun to watch on my break.
There you go.
Hey, there you go.
But yeah, because I am from England and not the US or Canada, I don't have access to Verve, so I can't pre-download episodes to any of my devices to be able to watch them on the go for any commutes that I might have. So it pretty much is just I watch them either on my computer or on my PS4, which is still pretty much in the exact same spot because one of my monitors is also my TV. Because oddly enough, prefer just having Netflix run from my PS4 than trying to find the website.
Yeah, I watch a lot of anime on my PS4 too when I'm not watching it on the go.
We do too. We have like all 3 apps on there because I've got Crunchyroll, Verve, and Amazon because I'm a sucker and I pay for the Amazon subscription every year. So I have all 3 of those on my phone and all 3 of those on my well, obviously on the computer, but also on the PS4. So I guess we all have that in common.
Mm-hmm.
Honey, how do you handle balancing anime and being a podcast host? You're the newest one here. What's your method? What's your method to the madness?
I don't have a method for balancing anything.
You just are. You just do it.
I'll play video games, but I buy like 20 different video games every month. So nothing ever gets finished. I'll play a video game for maybe a few days and then I'll jump to something else because I have ADHD. And then anime, before what used to happen is I would before I started talking to Cassie, what used to happen is if I tried to get into something seasonal, I'd download an episode, the first episode. If I liked it, there was a slight chance I might watch the next few episodes. And then eventually what would always happen is, unless it was super good, I would drop off and never finish it. And then me and Cassie started hanging out, and then she started putting me on the whole podcasting thing more. We started watching more stuff together. And then everything became, I was watching everything with Cassie. And so that at least meant that I was finishing things. But recently, for the podcast, we've decided that we're going to try and do shows on our own.
Oh.
Oh.
Or
Or
certain
certain shows. Cells at Work was something that we watched on our own. And so I watched that on my commutes to work. But before the podcast, I didn't have any, I didn't have Crunchyroll on my phone. I didn't have anything on my phone to watch stuff with. So I've only just recently started doing that.
And it's all our fault.
Yeah, it's all your guys' fault. I didn't know about the Verve thing, the download thing. That's actually pretty helpful. I should probably make use of that because
I could have told you that.
Yeah, the connection at our office is really garbage, and I can't actually stream while I'm in the building because it doesn't work.
Yeah, offline download is rad.
Yeah, so I should take advantage of that. As far as everything, yeah, I'm really bad at balancing things because I'm such a scatterbrain.
and I'm like just kind of my head's in 12 different places at once. So, the commute thing is probably the biggest help for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that about multiple things at once. Another quick thing I think I could ask everybody is if you experience burnout, maybe how you cope with that. Sometimes I'll notice that, for whatever reason, I am feeling a burnout of either watching anime as a whole or specifically like a show that I have to get through. And oftentimes I'll just balance that by taking breaks in between episodes or like sometimes when I'm really having like a heavy anime burnout, I will watch like an episode of a Western cartoon or like something on Netflix or play a video game instead that just gives me like a little bit of a reprieve of anime.
Yeah, I get burnout a lot.
You don't say.
Yeah, especially with video games because I'll play like longer Japanese RPGs, and if I play like multiples of those in a row, I'll get burned out really fast, and sometimes this can last for like a really, really long time. And the way that I fix it is doing other things for an extended period of time to sort of like, I guess, refresh myself. I might still play video games. I just won't play like really long, like RPGs. I'll play like a platformer or something, something I can like take care of, in a day or two. I'll play like a bunch of those in like a row, and then I'll be like, oh, like, okay, I feel like I still accomplished something because I beat like these small games instead of trying to like tinker out time in this long 80-hour, adventure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least with video games, that's how I handle it. With anime, I don't get burnout so much as I don't really get burnout with anime because unless I don't like marathon. The only time I've marathon anything recently is Hunter x Hunter, and I did that with a friend, and we would like do it every weekend, so it'd be like 20 episodes in a weekend. But that's still like spread out, so it's hard for me to get super burnt out with anime.
That's good.
Yeah, because it's not a consistent like I'm doing this every single day kind of thing. And if it is, it's like watching one episode. So that's my take, is to not continuously go at it. Just maybe if like pace it out over a set period of time.
Yeah, give yourself little breaks.
Something I've done a couple of times now is if getting through a particular series is really feeling like a slog for whatever reason, something I've been doing is going, especially if it's for the podcast, is okay, what day do I need to have at least most of this watched by? Okay, how many episodes is it? So I've got this number of days to get through this number of episodes. So each day I need to watch at least 3 episodes or 4 episodes, depending on how late into how far I've gotten into the series and how late into it I'm like, okay, I'm really struggling to get through this. I really need to put my head down. Thankfully, sometimes it's been like, oh, I just need to watch 2 episodes a day. That's fine. For the most part, it could be like, oh, I'll watch an episode, take a little break, watch another episode, take a little break, and then watch the 3rd episode, and then maybe I'll get myself to watch a 4th if it is that I've gotten myself to... I'm at a point where I can just watch 3 episodes and be done. Doesn't always work out, because occasionally, every so often, like, family will get in the way, and I have other... that will just... And then I'm like, okay, now I've got to watch all 3 episodes in one go. But, that works. That, for the most part, works out fine. Some series I don't feel like I'm going to like, but need to watch anyway, I probably should start them. Force myself to start watching them earlier than I do, because especially if I feel like they're going to be a slog and I'm going to be going like, I need to watch a certain number of episodes. I really need to start trying to get things done a little bit more ahead time than I do.
And I think that that's like a good way to think about it is pacing yourself, because I think that watching anime and getting burnout from just watching anime is completely different than getting burnout from being a podcast host. And I learned that because this podcast even happened because I was going through burnout. Like, I was trying to watch anime and I wasn't having any fun anymore. Or I'd start 16 different shows and I just wasn't having fun. And it wasn't as fun for me anymore. And then I started listening to podcasts, which I had never heard of before until Craig and Zach and others had started their own. Ding, ding. If you want to watch other stuff, Craig does a podcast that's really great. That's called Save Our Progress. Go check them out. We'll plug them at the end of the episode, too. Yeah. But anyway, they started that, and I started listening to other stuff, and that's when I came across the Anime Addicts Anonymous and a couple of others, like Otaku Spirit and... oh god, I think it was called Anime World Order. There were a few of them that I picked up. And I was like, wow, like getting to talk to people about like that's such a cool concept. And I started really starting to absorb all these podcasts. And I'm like, I want to do this with my friends too. Maybe I'll actually start finishing anime that I started. And that has worked brilliantly, but has also introduced me to a new kind of burnout, which is, wow, watching anime feels like homework now. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Yeah. And that's why I have this rule in the podcast that everybody has to finish it before a couple days before. And it's not to be mean, but it's to keep people from doing this to themselves. Because if you keep marathoning an anime a day before we're going to review it, you're going to suffer burnout so much quicker than you would if you're, pacing yourself out. So that's just another thing is like knowing when you're starting to feel either of those kinds of burnout, and like Dominic said, going and trying something else, either something similar to the thing that you enjoy so you can remember why you enjoyed it in the first place, like you going and doing platformers and feeling that sense of accomplishment. Like go and read a manga or something that's still within that realm of why you love anime, whether it be the stories or the characters or the designs or whatever, and that way you can go back to it when you're ready. Or just doing something completely different, like Cammie said, watching some Western cartoons or a Western television show like Game of Thrones or something. I sat down and marathon that entire show when I was sick one time, and I just wasn't feeling like watching anime. It just however it is you deal with it. It's just knowing when you're starting to get burned out and finding ways to keep yourself from actually reaching that level.
Yeah.
I've also discovered, and the fact that not only am I into gaming and anime, I also like movies and Western TV shows and cartoons and everything under the sun. Comics I've tried to, but I've horribly failed at. And it's to a point where I've got it instilled in my brain, and I used to be really bad at this, where I'd be kind of like Dom, and I don't mean this as a negative, where I'd be like, I'm gonna buy all these games, and I have a giant-ass backlog. Well, now I'm like, okay, that's kind of throwing away money. I'm going to buy maybe one game a month, maybe every other month, and then try and get ahead of my anime so I have more time to dick around or something, or catch up on old stuff. So what I'm trying to say is, really, it's kind of setting your expectations. Go for what you really want to go for or are in the mood for at that moment. And that way you don't feel like going through XYZ show is homework, and you're just like, oh my god, I gotta watch this show for the podcast this week, the next week, and the next week, and there's also Kingdom Hearts that's out, and I gotta do this too. Fuck!
Or you could just be like me and let the backlog consume you.
I mean, why don't you? Why don't we all just do that right now? Stop doing everything, guys. It's not worth it. Let all of those things build up till you've wasted a bunch of money and time, and then get to them.
I mean, that's what I do.
How's that working out for you?
I have a lot of things to entertain myself with. So
I mean, that's fair. See, this can only end well for you.
Totally. I'm never bored.
It's true.
Every so often I look at my Steam library and I'm like, I have so many titles on here that I have not touched. And some of them I really need to actually play through at some point. Like Undertale. Yeah.
That game's short. You can play through that so easy. That reminds me of a very funny story, though, now that you bring that up. So many years ago, our friend Zach bought me this game called Gone
I swear
Home.
to God.
And I don't play games on my PC as often anymore. Recently, I got a brand new, pretty shiny Switch.
Woo!
And I noticed that Gone Home is available on the Nintendo Switch.
Swear to God.
So I was like, I could just buy this game and play it on my Nintendo Switch.
I mean, that is a viable strategy.
I thought so too. And I was like, oh, I can finally play through the game and Zach will be happy because he's been begging me to play this game for years. And then Zach and Craig are both like, no, Cassie, don't you do that. That's just mean. And I'm like, okay.
No, that's totally valid. If something comes out on a system that you have a stronger preference for, even if you already own it on something else, buying it again on that new platform just so you actually like get around to it, that's in my view, that's totally viable.
I thought so too, but I guess that's just hurtful.
What if the game was a gift?
If the game was a gift, then, I mean, at least you still appreciate the gift and you appreciate it enough to be like, hey, I'm gonna get it on this new thing so that I can actually, like, play it and talk to you about it. That's the way I look at it.
And then
at
just
least.
letting it sit there
Then just
forever.
letting it, because I mean, let's be honest, she's not gonna play it on PC.
There it is.
Touche.
There we go. I just felt like bringing that up because I thought it was relevant.
Yeah.
But no, John, I'm right there with you. I have like 60 million fucking games on my Steam library, and the only thing that has over 80 hours on it is Smite.
Yeah, that's me in Stardew Valley.
I mean, hell, Cammy bought me Dream Daddy. Like,
yeah, she doesn't play
like
that.
a year or
It's
two
fine.
ago. I haven't played that either. We'll get there eventually.
Damn.
I'll let you know if it has a Switch port. I'm actually not sure, but either way.
I have a friend that will gift me Steam games. Like every year, he'll gift me a Steam game, and I haven't beaten a single one of them, and I feel bad because he still gifts them to me. You know, because he's just a good guy.
I've got a lot of games that were gifted to me, and I'm like, yeah, I'll play this. I'll play this eventually, one day. Still haven't touched any of it.
I mean, I got a decent ways into one of them just because it was during a time where I only really had Steam games to really play. But I still haven't beaten any of them. I feel bad. But it's I don't play games on... One, I don't have my computer with me right now, so... The other is I just don't play games on PC as much lately. So, I get it. I get the wanting to buy it on Switch so you'll actually fucking get around to it. I get that. I think it's totally, fair.
Yeah,
So,
I do
Cass,
too.
what I'm hearing is you're gonna buy the game on the Switch then.
Maybe someday. I've got like 3 other games to play. That's the other bad thing about buying the Switch, is now I actually enjoy playing video games on a console. So Dominic is like, let's make her play as many games as we possibly can.
Now I'm not just buying myself games, I'm buying Cassie games. I'll just go out and I already have like a small list of games that I want to get Cassie because I think she would actually like them. And it also means that I don't have to buy them and play them myself. So I can just live them vicariously through her.
And that's what we all are just trying to get to. Learn what you love, learn how to manage what you love, and learn that
Pick your
maybe
battles.
sometimes it's okay to watch Bloom Into You in public.
Could be worse. Could have been watching Green or
It wasn't
Uzume.
green, and it wasn't citrus. There we go.
Oh god, Citrus.
Ugh.
Can you imagine if you were like, oh man, let's check out this Devilman Crybaby show everybody's raving
my
about.
God.
It won Anime of the Year on the Crunchies last night. Let's go cue it up on Netflix. What's the worst that could happen?
Okay, yeah, don't do that ever, people.
I watched that show at my parents' place on my iPad, and then I was like, I'm going to plug in my earphones because there's things that I don't want my siblings to hear. I almost had a situation there. It's pretty bad.
You mean there's
Yeah.
something in Devilman Crybaby that you can't show your mom? What?
That
That can't be true.
Maybe she might have enjoyed the artistic vision that is Misaki Yuasa, but
Someday I kind of want to just sit my mom in front of a TV and show her various things and see if she likes any of it, but I know she'd never actually humor me.
My mom is, like, prejudiced against any sort of cartoons. She just thinks they're all for kids. So.
Oh god, show her Devilman Crybaby.
Oh, yeah, I should.
Your poor mom would probably have a heart attack.
She
Let's not do
would,
that.
yeah.
Oh.
You know what reminds me of heart attacks?
Heart attacks. That sounds like a health thing. Much like the show that we're going to review, Cells at Work, aka Hataraku Saibou.
Saibou.
Thank you,
Saiko!
Thank you, Cam.
Hatarakuzo.
Hatarakuzo!
Mainichi, mainichi.
Shugyoju!
turn.
Oh!
Yeah!
I like how you passed that over because you couldn't remember the word
Nope,
again.
don't remember. Already gone.
I got you.
The studio for this show is David Productions. Other shows by them, you may know them as the people that did the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Golden Wind, which won Best Character Designs at the Crunches. Good on them. And they did a show that Cass likes, the Inu X Boku SS.
Hey, Cammy loves that show too.
Yeah.
Cammy arguably loves it even more than I do.
Maybe. But who knows?
That was like the biggest, like, I don't know, but I don't know if it's your love of it is better, or
Cassie and I just love really hard, okay? I think we have that
do.
in common.
Yeah, it's true.
The synopsis for the show goes as such. This is a story about you, a tale about the inside of your body. According to a new study, the human body consists of approximately 37 trillion cells. These cells are hard at work every day within a world that is your body. From the oxygen-carrying red blood cells to the bacteria-fighting white blood cells, get to know the unsung heroes and drama that unfolds inside you. It's the oddly relatable and interesting story that is about life of cells. Guys, what is the story of a cell? Tell me the daily lives of a cell, of the immune system, or otherwise.
I'm not a fucking doctor.
I mean, hey.
You don't feel like one after watching the show?
No.
I mean, hey, if you want to see what a doctor thought about this show, go check out Dr. Hope's Sick Notes, which John so greatly gave us the link to, that we'll put in the description so you can see what a real doctor thinks of the story of this show. Hey, hacha, hacha. Now, if you want to know about somebody who mildly paid attention in biology and what they thought of this show, I thought it was great. The show lacks a real narrative, which is fine. It's like it's the weirdest thing to say. It's like a slice of life show when it's about your body, but it is.
Yeah.
It's very episodic.
Yeah.
It's a slice of life show. It's very episodic, with an occasional two-parter that typically is more on the dramatic side. But for the most part, it's just a fun romp, and it's just like any other slice of life show. If we review any slice of life show on this show that is decent, I'm going to say the exact same thing every time. It does what it does, and it does what it does well. And there's not much else for me to say.
We should say it's like a slice of life show with a lot of blood.
Yeah.
A lot of
it's
things
violent.
being cut and ripped open, but yeah, it's still a slice of life show.
Yeah. A slice of your life.
Wow.
Oof.
Wow.
Damn.
Wow, that was Pete right there.
Thanks,
Pete.
Pete.
You were just channeling Pete.
I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah, the thing I liked about the show was the by episode nature. I was just like, okay, so we're being introduced to new pathogens and like the immune system, blood cells, and every episode the narrator would stop and explain what the pathogen was or what the function of the immune cell would be, and it'd be like, fuck, I don't even know how to pronounce this word. Shit.
But I think that what the show does very well is that even though it shows you those little blurbs of what things are, they never overstay their welcome. It's not like you get to a part of the episode and then it's like, okay, everybody open up your textbooks and turn to page 5. Like, that's not what the show is. It gives you just enough as that you need to understand how clever it is, and that's about it.
it's just a fun, unique setting, you know? Like, it's not every day we get a show that functions as kind of like as effective of an educational entertainment show, like, say, the Magic School Bus. Like, that's the Western equivalent I can come up with, where it
Yeah.
just, it makes learning really fun and quirky and zany. And I really appreciate it for that.
The closest thing I can think of to something like this that was entertaining to watch, but was also trying to be accurate and teach you about it, was a series that came out in the 80s. That was Story of Life, I believe it was called. I knew it as How My Body Works when I grew up. And it was also like inside your body, the immune system fighting against like the cells, your immune system fighting against viruses and like just how your body works. That was the idea behind it. But yeah, that came out in like the 80s or something like that.
Yeah, for a more recent example, for the example that everybody on the internet
Osmosis Jones.
At least let me say it.
I was just gonna ask if that's what it was.
At least let me get to it.
I will.
I
was just asking.
I was building up to it, and then you just ruined my thunder. I was like, damn.
I didn't hear you, Dom. What was it? What was it again?
God. For the example that everybody on the internet immediately like came up with when this show first dropped, it's like Osmosis Jones, except without the parts where you see the actual real person like eating on food and all that other gross shit.
Yeah.
It's just, cute anime girls and a strangely adorable murderous anime man.
Oh, yes. Beautifully said.
I have in my notes here that, like, I tried to talking to my friends about the show, like, when we went to Disney. I was like, Paul, this anime is so unique because it's episodic, but there's, like, I want to headcanon a narrative that this is all the same individual who goes through so much turmoil and shit. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, this individual's at the doctor's and he's just like, oh God, my insurance. It cost me so much to go to the doctor's.
You know what?
Go ahead. I mean, he lives in Japan.
Yeah, so he's probably fine.
Yeah.
Like, they have decent healthcare in Japan. But
yeah.
My other thought, too, is that it's not saying that these happen in sequential order. The time that could have passed between episode 1 and 2 could have been a whole month.
Yeah,
or
true.
Some of the things that they introduce, such as, like, the common cold, or I think, like, the first episode was just a very minor bacteria that they're destroying that, causes a sneeze. Or, like there's, like, or, let's see, what was it? There was one that was, like, food poisoning. Like, things like that aren't, like, life-threatening diseases that couldn't happen. Like, I could have an allergy response and then in the same day get food poisoning. It could happen.
Yeah, for sure.
So even if you want to think that this all takes place in the same body of the same individual, which I think it does because of a situation that happens in the last couple of episodes, where it talks about, like, new cells that were not in this body previously and came from elsewhere, and they had, like, a completely different attitude and way of speaking. I think that this is in the same body. One theory that I thought was really cool that also came from the Dr. Hope sick notes is you're introduced to a very interesting situation in episode 7. I'm not going to say what happens in that episode, but they introduce the possibility that the person who this body belongs to could have come in contact with something that could cause a very terrifying disease that a lot of people deal with. And if that were the case, if this person, he or she, had this situation going on, that would lower their immune system, and all these other things that are taking place would be more likely to happen.
Yeah.
Just from my side of the story on that.
Also, another thing to keep in mind is that all the basic cells, rather than, like, the immune system cells or the red blood cells, all look like the same person. And they're all, like, a pretty typical looking... Well, most of them do. Occasionally they go outside the little... outside of that, and you'll have, like, a basic cell that looks like that has, like, a pompadour or something silly for, like, a one-off joke. But for the basic... the basic cell as they all look the same.
Yeah,
and they all look like
a white t-shirt.
Yeah, they all look like a very basic Japanese, male. And there's no female basic cells, which, hints at that basic cell takes on the appearance of the actual person.
Oh, I'd never thought about
they
that.
inhabit. Yeah, I was talking about this with Craig a while back. It was just something that I had thought of.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting theory.
Like, even if that isn't the case, like, there's just so many intricate things that are put into every single one of these characters, and that's what, and I'm sure we'll get to characters soon, but that's what makes this narrative special, as opposed to other, like, comedies, is that it has a niche thing that's about being inside your body and blah, 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 but they could have gone the Osmosis Jones route with it, which I remember that movie. It had some smart stuff, but for the most part, it wasn't about teaching you anything, or being super accurate, or trying to be fun, or, I don't know, maybe it was fun, but it was more just a cheesy way to have a gimmick. And to have a blockbuster. And whereas this show is very smart, it even down to like what the clothes they're wearing, or the fact that, for example, Helper T-Cell is like a commander and seems to be wearing a military uniform, or the Killer T-Cells all are what seems to be in like a military kind of thing. The fact that, most of the cells come from like a bone marrow, and like everything that happens is something that's supposed to represent something that would actually happen in your body, down to sometimes even the clothes the characters wear, or things that they do that may seem mundane, like the fact that, oh hey, every episode we see Red Blood Cell and she's carrying a package of oxygen. That's important.
Also, her jacket is reversible, so it's like lighter with dark trim if she's carrying oxygen, and then darker with lighter trim if she's carrying carbon dioxide.
Huh.
The little details that are put into this narrative make it shine, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. To shift us a little bit into characters, if that's okay, I will also say that I think this show works strongly because it relies less so on main characters. We have them, but it's an ensemble cast because, your body's made up of more than one cell. And they're all pretty likable, I think. Did anyone have favorite characters, though?
Oh, we all did.
Yeah.
We all did.
I just want to go on the record by saying my icon is Helper T-Cell, just because of the fact that people say I could pull off a cosplay of him pretty damn well, and I'm just like, that guy wears interesting looking socks. But also just the thought process of him and regulatory T-Cell is just like a lieutenant, or like not lieutenant, a commander-in-chief, and then his second-in-command just issuing the militaristic orders to the killer T-Cells to go fight pathogens is pretty hardcore in my opinion.
I just like how she's constantly like done with his shit as well.
They're like an old married couple, if there were old married couples for cells.
That character just reminds me a lot of you, Craig, like chilling in the back by all these screens,
sipping
just
tea.
making sure shit works.
Cammy, who's your favorite character?
It's the platelets. It's the fucking platelets. They're so cute. There's just
I don't know, am I right?
I died on the inside every time they poked at their cheeks. I was like, oh, this is like catharsis for me. Just give me this every episode.
They just
Small
walk
child
around being cute. And then they serve a function, and their function is so great because I just love the kind of underdog story thing. And like, they didn't serve a huge narrative device, but like you just see them walking around, and they made Red Blood Cell smile, and then they like worked really, really hard to walk down the stairs.
I just love the episode with the cut. One of the first episodes, episode 2, and you've got these viruses like invading the body, and White Blood Cell is there like, but amongst all the immune system, there's one person that you didn't take account for. And it's like, what is the secret weapon? And then you just got the platelets appear, like, here we are.
And like, if they wanted to make me care about taking care of my body, representing parts of my body by cute anime girls, specifically the platelets, I will never scratch at a scab again because I know it ruins the platelets' hard work. You know?
Yep.
So my life is improved by the presence of the platelets.
The other thing that I really liked, and this is a silly touch, but I loved it, is that even the platelets had kind of like a chain of command. You had like the lead platelet who often gave orders, and they really, like even down to the platelets, they showed like there is a function that each of these cells has, and they all work together to make our body work properly. And interact with other cells in very specific ways. And the platelets had a chain of command just as much as the scary killer T cells did. So that's a pretty neat comparison if you think about it too.
Cass, who's your favorite character?
So
we all know. Before
I talk about the character that I have currently presenting in my heart and my icon, I wanted to do a shout out to white blood cell and red blood cells interactions on screen were probably my favorite character interactions in the entire show. But if we're going based just entirely on a character, I really loved Macrophage. I loved that every time she showed up, she just handled her job in such an elegant way. And it's just my aesthetic to have a cute, adorable woman in maid clothing have blood spattered across her face. It's just my aesthetic. Another thing, though, is I really started to love her when there's an episode that bases specifically on her, I'll call it character development.
Yeah.
Where she starts out as a cell and then where she actually ends up is one of the most interesting on-screen things in the show, and I loved it a whole lot. It's one of the later episodes, but it made me laugh. I loved it. It was good. I just love how fun she is, and that's just cool. I also love that the macrophage is just she wears many hats, I think is something that I've heard someone say. She does so many different things, and it's crazy how often she shows up in the show, even in the background, just to either help out or accidentally almost clobber someone's head off. She's great. I love her.
Or just sipping tea.
Yeah, I'd die for her. Not that I'll have to.
Like, when you think about the immune system, like, I wrote it down in my notes. It's just like, well, you have the macrophage, which is just this elegant goddess maid lady that just has the most brutal weapons. You have the white blood cells that are like the cops, and then you have the killer T cells that are essentially like the National Guard, and they're all just going, like, running at a pathogen just to kill it.
I thought of them more as the Marines, if I'm being honest.
Fair. That's a good comparison too. I like that.
I think it should also just be quick aside that Cassie's adorable nephew got really into like learning about cells, and he said that Cassie would be a macrophage, like even before she watched the show.
Yeah, it made me happy. Yeah, I was going to cosplay a platelet, and my nephew was just like, "But Aunt Cassie, you're a macrophage. You're so kick-ass." And it's like, I don't know who you've been interacting with, child, but I'll take it. I wish I could be that elegant or that strong, but hey.
Which you should actually show your nephew the show, but it's a little too violent.
My favorite character is I don't know how to fucking say this.
I think it's Esiophil.
Esiophil?
Or something like that.
Yeah. She was in one particular episode. I think it was episode 4?
It was food poisoning, so I think that was 3.
Okay.
Something like that. 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah, 4.
Yeah, it was 4.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Yeah, and her whole deal was that she was a white blood cell. She was a special type of white blood cell that had trouble dealing with basic like germs or bacteria and stuff.
Yeah.
But she like specializes in like killing parasites or whatever. So at the end of the episode, like a big like monstrous parasite like bursts through, and she is like, "Okay, finally, step back, everybody. I got this.
My time to shine."
Anyways, she wears pink and she's
really cute.
She's cute. She's got this thing where she gets like super embarrassed if you compliment her too much, and she starts blushing. Well. Yeah. And she also has a spear, which is the best weapon. And she jumps and she's like a dragoon in like a Final Fantasy game, which
yeah, I can get that.
Yeah. So
the dragoon of your cells.
Yeah, basically. She's the dragoon of your cells. So instant favorite.
Her episode was just so good. It gave such a good like emotional like arcing narrative to show like cells that specifically specialize in one thing, like that they're still valuable and they're there for a purpose. It was sweet.
Yeah. I'm also a sucker for characters who like spend a good deal of time being like, oh, I'm not that good at this sort of thing, and then, you know, at the end they find, or they get to display that thing that they're good at and
Everyone
feel good.
appreciates them.
And everybody appreciates. I'm just a sucker for that kind of shit, so.
Yeah, I'm too. Her episode really messed me up. I actually had to take a moment, because it wasn't even particularly sad, but I was just like, I am so overwhelmed right now.
I currently have White Blood Cell set as my icon, because he did end up being one of my favorite characters. Though I actually cosplayed as a naive killer T-cell.
I honestly figured you'd pick Naive as your icon of choice.
I liked him. I did like the fact that he went from this like weakling to this super buff.
I mean, that's what, if you call that character development, that boy went through an arc.
But no, I ended up really enjoying. It was part of it was the interactions between him and Red Blood Cell, but he just there were just so many times he was on screen that I just really ended up laughing out loud about stuff going on. Like there's an episode where Red Blood Cell is just trying to actually get the job done on her own without relying on anyone else, and he's just secretly there kind of in the background guiding her, and a virus shows up, goes to get in the way, and he just appears right in front of them, goes shh at them, drags them off. just so that they don't get in the way of Red Blood.
I love how he switches so quickly from being like chill and kind of sweet and like low key to just fucking savage. There was a scene I remember where he's like, I don't really know what it is. I guess I'll just bite it, and he like fucking chews half of it off.
Yeah.
There's blood everywhere, and Red Blood Cell is screaming, and I'm just like,
Which is
incredible.
hilarious.
Yeah.
But educationally hilarious, because that's what white blood cells actually do to gain information. So that's actually a great point, that the show, like, its comedic timing is almost 90% of the time also an educational bit, which is pretty great.
I also love his little ding-dong hat detector thing when he ever comes across, like, ding-dong, oh, there's a virus here.
I do have to ask, because I mentioned this on our on the OTP award. Did y'all want the red blood cell and white blood cell to hold hands like I did, or was I the only one?
I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I kind of settled for them sitting and drinking tea together and like talking about their day at the end of one of the episodes, where she's just like telling him all the things that she accomplished that day, and he was just like, yeah, you did that. That's so good. That was
Yeah,
probably
it was just very wholesome.
That was the peak for me. I would have liked a hand-holding scene, but at the same time, I think, listen, I'm just gonna say a doctor watched this show, and by episode 2 or 3, he's like, I see there might be a blooming romance between red blood cell and white blood cell. I hate to admit that that's probably not how that actually happens in your body. And you know what? If even a doctor can see it, I'm gonna say it's canon that there's probably a crush there, but but I'm okay with them wholesome sitting there.
Oh yeah,
Just
I just
talking
meant if
about
you
their
guys shipped
day.
it, because it's
But
so cute.
I ship it. I ship
Yep.
it. You ship
It's
it,
pretty
huh?
cute.
I thought it was cute, but I don't really I don't ship it, but I like the wholesome like dynamic, because they're cells, so I know that's not how it works. I know they're not doing that. So I just like the wholesome, like, oh yeah, they're just super good friends, and they just chill and they help each other out, and I mean it's cute. I get it. It's cute.
Craig, do you
That's
ship
okay.
it?
No, I want them to be friends. Production. This show is fucking cool looking, dude. David Production did a good job.
Yeah, there was like one episode, I think the backstory episode with the Killer T-Cell's
Yeah.
backstory. I think that episode looked very, very not well done. Like the production on that one was pretty sloppy.
Oh yeah.
But the rest of the time it looked pretty good. David Production's really good at using like CG for like background, like just people walking around, and it not like I could tell if I looked really hard, oh, that's CG, but it still blended in just well enough that it wasn't like
egregious.
Yeah, it wasn't like bad. So David Productions always been really good at that, especially with their work and like JoJo and stuff. So yeah, it looks nice for the most part, and the character designs are all really detailed and everything. And it doesn't really make a whole lot of sacrifices except for like that one episode. There's like that one episode in the 12 or 13 episode run that's kind of like, but other than that, it looks great.
Yeah.
Another thing that's very important about the production is they utilized how they moved things and how they presented things to you to actually also give you little bits of knowledge, like the sneezing missiles, or
yes,
or how in the first episode, you know, the fact that you can capsulize and utilize learning what a cell is and then shooting it off, or like when Macrophage like picked something up off the ground, like the way the characters moved or did things in the production was also a reflection of the body part or whatever they were interacting with, and they utilized their budget and how they animated their characters and what they made them do for reasons, and it was really cool to see. Also, the opening's great.
Yeah, opening and ending are so good and catchy.
They are.
I love
they
them.
really are.
I love Claris music.
I was like walking down to like send off a package one day, and I was just like, "We are cells at work. 1, 2.
We are
Hataraku.
Hataraku.
Ooh!" And I would do that all the time randomly. I'd just be laying there, and randomly I'd just be like, "Hey, Dominic, we are cells at work," and they would sing with me, and it was very fun.
I feel like the only other thing production-wise that I want to note is that they would go to chibi style, but like it was utilized at a good place. You know, it didn't feel like a cop-out. It was just, this is a little comedic part. We can use the chibi style to accentuate that. So they did that well. And there were great reaction faces and vocal reactions as well for the humor.
Yeah, a lot with Red Blood Cell as she's spazzing out and like running into like random like monsters of the week, essentially. She's just like, oh my god, why this? I was just trying to get to this location and I ran into a room and there's a monster there and fuck.
And also how like sort of going in the opposite direction with like Red Blood Cell when he's like, all chill and calm, and then suddenly super high detail as he goes to bite into something, because and like.
Speaking of White Blood Cell, the action choreography in this show is really fucking top tier. I don't know if that's just because they're also the guys that do JoJo, but they really utilized their budget to get the best people they could to do the fight scenes and the choreography and always make it look fresh, because these cells slice up stuff all the time, like almost every episode, and they always like make it look intricate or different, and I thought that was rad.
Actually, I just thought of this. Do you want me to give credit where credit is due?
Go for it. It's time for Craig's Credit Corner.
Woo!
Woo!
Director Kenichi Suzuki directed JoJo's Part 1 through 3. Obviously, David Productions, you get a prolific director to direct one of your shows. Writer Yuko Kakihara did the series composition for Aikatsu Friends and Aikatsu Stars and Asabi Asabase. And the music was composed by Kenichiro Suihiro. Did the music for ReZero, Golden Kamuy, and Goblin Slayer. This is based on a manga, which has 5 volumes out in the US and Japan. So there you go.
One other thing in production that we can talk about is they did this thing that I'm kind of a sucker for, and I had to go back and check with everyone else if they liked it too. But when they I think it was like episode 7 or 8, somewhere halfway through the show, they like swapped out the opening that like a lot of the characters were singing the opening.
Oh, right.
And they had like a different track for that opening, and I thought it was pretty cool. And
yeah,
I asked,
it was a Killer T Cell's backstory episode.
Yeah, I had to ask Dominic and Craig about that. I was like, did that happen, or am I just really happy over nothing? And they were like, no, they swapped it out, and it had this person singing, and this person singing, and this person singing. And I was like, oh, I love that. That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the time it's the voice actors for Red Blood Cell and White Blood Cell singing it, but I believe that episode it was Killer T Cell and Macrophage.
Yeah.
Well then, do we have anything more to say in production or about the show as a whole before we move into ratings?
I got nothing. It's kind of a simple little show. It's kind of hard to talk about dynamically for very long.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here. What order shall we go in? Cass, you're up first.
Me first?
Yes.
Okay. I think that Hataraku Saibou is a lovely little show that you'd be doing yourself a disservice by not checking out. We talked about earlier anime burnout, and if you're experiencing burnout, I think that this would be a great show to just turn on in the background and definitely just give yourself some time to just enjoy something lighthearted, fun, and learn a thing or two. That might be a great prescription for your burnout. As it were. The show is very different. In the realm of comedy / slice of life, there's not a whole lot of things like it, and just for that fact alone, that niche little thing, it's worth checking out as well. I liked the show a lot. I was going back and forth between a check it and a like it because it is a slice of life and it is a comedy, and for that reason, it's really hard to say that it will appeal to everyone because it probably won't. I know a couple of people just personally who liked the show too, but only watched a few episodes, got what they wanted out of it, and left. So that's just kind of where I sit with it. It's a show that's really good. It's fun. I laughed. I kind of almost cried a couple times. I went and watched a dude talk about the scientific breakdowns of the show. So I'm invested enough to give it a like it. I think I enjoyed my time, and I feel like I can recommend this to a lot of people. So in that regard, I think that it excels, and I'm gonna probably try and take better care of myself after watching it. So
platelets. No.
Well, not just the platelets, but if you get down to it and think about it, it's just like the things that I do just put such a stress on my body with how much caffeine I ingest and how little I get up and move around and just the amount of stress I pour on myself in general. It's just like you don't really think about how your body is working really hard to sustain you and keep you alive every day. And that is definitely a lesson I walked away with, so we'll see what I can do. But for now, I'm going to give this show a like it and pass it on to the next person.
Next up is Dom.
Oh, I saw that one coming. I enjoyed this show. I wasn't like super. I was talking about this with Cassie. It's not like a super like she said. It's not like a super compelling kind of show that I feel like everyone needs to experience. I didn't get as deeply invested as she did. I'm not like watching YouTube videos on it or anything. But I enjoyed my time with it. I think it's a very fun little show that you can just kind of pop in an episode every so often and, have a good time. There's not a whole lot of investment for it. In fact, it's kind of a show where you can, with the exception of a few two-parters, you can honestly pop in any episode, even if you haven't seen the others, and still get something out of it because it's that episodic. So my rating is a very strong check it. Give it a watch, see if it's something that appeals to you. It is, I think there are certain things that might not appeal to certain people. It is very like bloody. It's kind of cartoon bloody, but still like there's lots of blood. The humor, of course, there's the humor can be subjective. That sort of thing. So give it a watch. Check out a few episodes, see if you like it. Yeah.
All right. I'll go next then. I echo a lot of sentiments that have already been said. I was rather surprised by this show. I honestly thought that I'd kind of, like Cass said, check it and then bounce, but I wound up liking it a lot more than I anticipated. And that's mostly due to the characters. The episodic nature aside, it made me learn about, like, the immune system in a educational yet fun way. I like to see what shenanigans white blood cell and red blood cell would wind up encountering this, like, each week to week to week. Mind you, I've binged the entire thing and then watched the last 2 episodes as they were airing. But that aside, I like this show. It should be noted that there is no dub for this show. Cass actually asked me when she was nearing the end of her run if there was, and I'm like, nope. And she was like, man, this show would actually be really well done if it was produced in with a English localization. And I agreed to that. But yeah, it's like Dom said, you could check it out, but I liked it for what it was. For others, at least check out a few episodes, and they're not tangible. There is no through line, so just pick an episode and see what you got with it. Cammy, what you got for us?
This show was so refreshing, just in the slog of seasonal anime that was coming out. You know, there are genres that we experience and like subjects that are covered in anime every single season, and the cells at work is something that I think is just, completely threw me out of left field and a lot of other people. It focuses on something so specific, but manages to translate that subject in a way that is appealing and fun and educational for a lot of people. And I think that's something that really is noteworthy. I do agree that I think that it's not necessarily for everyone, but when it does hit certain people, this is one of those shows that I've heard from multiple people, including one of my friends, that this is a show that she feels she can connect to her sister who doesn't watch anime but is a med student. Like this is one of those shows that can connect people through unlikely lines that you don't normally find or find very easily in anime. And I think that's pretty dang special. This show was fun. It had great comedy, good production. It seemed like the whole staff that worked on it had a lot of fun with it, and I had a lot of fun watching it. So yeah, I give this a strong like it. It's a great little comedy slice of life, and you should check it out. And to throw a recommendation along the way, this show's garnered a lot of cringe over the years, but if you want a show that addresses an educational topic and anthropomorphizes things that would not normally be anime characters, you can check out Axis Powers Hetalia, which talks about world history and anthropomorphizes world countries and just does some really zany, wacky things with it. So yeah.
And finally, we have JoJo, the man who passed this show in the summer 2018 season. John, what is your review of Cells at Work?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, when I did pass it, I kind of went into this thinking, oh, this is something different, but at the same time, somewhat hesitant. It's like, how would they go about doing this series? Is it just going to end up being super repetitive? And it really wasn't. They, even by the end, each episode was different enough that, like, it really was never a slog to get through. In fact, going back to the burnout topic, when I was struggling with a couple of series recently, to take a bit of a break, I actually ended up watching this. And yeah, I just really enjoyed watching this pretty much all the way through. And I honestly wouldn't mind rewatching it at any point. I probably would load up an episode again to take a break from something else that might end up being a bit of a slug again. For me, I'm gonna have to give it a very strong like it, I think. Yeah, it's not really for everyone, but I do still think everyone should check it out at least. And see what they think about it themselves. Cause yeah, it's a really charming series, and like yeah, there's blood, but unless the sight of blood really puts you off, I don't. It doesn't really get super bloody all the time, and for the most part, it's still just really lighthearted.
All right. That's everyone's ratings. With that being said, this has been episode 99 of the Annie Chat Box. If you want to find us on social media, here are the ways. Twitter is one of them with 280 characters or less. Twitter.com/AnnieChatBox for short form. For long form, you can hit us up on email. Suggest a topic. Suggest an anime to lifeboat, if you will, for this seasonal anime. That is anniechatmail@gmail.com. Again, that is anniechatmail@gmail.com. We can be found in multiple podcast services around the globe, such as iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, and SoundCloud. We also can be found on YouTube, y'all. Finally, if you want to donate some hot cash ones to the cause, hit us up on Patreon. Patreon.com/AnnieChatBox. Also, as Cass pointed out earlier, I'm on another podcast, Saber Progress, which everyone is amazed that I'm able to do so much with my time and still actually function as a human being. Saber Progress. SoundCloud.com/Saber Progress, where we talk about multitudes of things. Let's see. Last week we talked about Redline, the anime movie Redline, and I believe that Zach actually will be talking about the Oscars with Cammy, so there's a little sneak peek for you. With that being said, y'all, we're going to have a quick spoiler room about Cells at Work. So if you want to stick around for that, you are more than welcome. For those who want to bounce, then you are more than welcome as well. But until then, let's go to the spoiler room, y'all. Cozy Chairs Cass has questions. Cass, what do you got?
Well, I think the only really questions that I had were there were a couple of episodes that I know a couple of us felt strongly about. I'm going to leave one of them for Cammy because I think she actually asked this question in some other places. One of the episodes I kind of felt dragged were literally the last two, where she had the senpai in training with her. And then there was like a hemorrhage and then everything kind of went to hell. The first episode I thought was really like enjoyable. And I was like, oh, we're actually getting something serious that's happening with the body. But I felt that it being 2 episodes was kind of a lot. There was this weird drag, and they built up to this, like, weird emotional peak with, like, her and her kohai, like, fighting. And then it, like, immediately got solved, like, right afterwards. I don't know, those episodes just felt weird to me. I'm not entirely sure why. So I wanted to see what your guys' opinions on it were. I don't know, I just felt like the whole kohai senpai thing was kind of just shoot in last minute, and while it had some moments that I really liked, I just kind of got annoyed with it by the end.
I feel as though for it kind of like, well, for all intents and purposes, it was like the end of the season drama, like they introduced, and then it's just like, oh, by the way, Red Blood Cell, you were kind of a spaz. Now you need to train the newbie, and you're just like, what? Well, this is new. Why don't we just have her by herself? And they got really dark, where like the kohai kind of sat there in the frozen wasteland, and Red Blood Cell Senior was just like, I'm gonna keep going on ahead and deliver this oxygen. You can stay there if you want, man. And it's just like, holy shit, did Red Blood Cell just leave her to die in the frozen tundra?
Yeah, the more that it's because it's been a while since I watched it, but the more that I think about it and the more you two speak about it, I do agree that first off, that narrative felt kind of contrived and forced. I feel like the same thing could have happened and we could have just had the interactions of like Red Blood Cell, White Blood Cell, everybody else still. They didn't really need to introduce the new character at that point.
Yeah.
I think that I personally, and I don't know, I guess it's just because I predicted it, and I honestly thought it was really sweet that the solution ended up being donated blood, and I thought that whole like solve was really cute, and I was like very excited about it with Get. I was like, oh, look at that! But the
Yeah,
the
I
build,
liked that as well.
yeah, but I agree, the build up was kind of, it was like you could get to the point.
I mean, I can understand that particular situation being a bit more dramatic, but that felt a bit, maybe a step too far with the drama. And I mean, yeah, it got to show her actually being dependable, but they could have done that without the Kohai as well. And like there was the moment where the Kohai called her out and like, you're just trying to show off in front of a Kohai. Like, I honestly don't think that was the case, but I can see how it could come across as that because the Kohai was there instead of her just being dependable, because this is a serious situation. She really needs to stick her head down and be serious. So
take this as you will, but I just looked this up. Those are chapters 17 and 18 of the manga. So I think, and based on what I'm looking at, they're just random one-off chapters as well, like the anime. So I don't know.
I mean, I don't think it was bad. I'm just saying, like, in the show where I was, like, for the most part, always, like, in with what was going on in the episodes, that was, like, the one... Which sucks because it's the last episode, but that was, like, the one episode where I just kind of started tuning out, because I was like, this is a bit much. I don't know, it seems a bit contrived and just dramatic to be dramatic. I did, however, like Cami said, enjoyed the fact that, donating blood was the solution, and I love that the blood that was donated was like completely different and spoke like kind of like with a dialect, and they were like, what are we doing here? I don't know. And that's where it kind of like pulled me back in, and I was like, oh, okay, this is good. But
you're dressed different to us. Are you a newbie?
It just literally like that was a magic fix. Like everything was dead. Like I was just like, man, is there going to be a gradual process? Nope, everything's fine. Blood cells. I'm like, fuck, they work fast then.
I mean, they had to rebuild everything.
yeah,
True.
It's just, the main issue with what was going on was that they didn't have blood, so nothing was...
Oh, right, yeah. Red
Yeah.
blood cells were dying, essentially. Falling off cliffs. Again, really dark.
Yeah, that was the primary fix, but all the damage, they still had to rebuild all that.
yeah. And that was shown to be, like, an issue and something that they were working on together, and I liked that. I just... The story beat, to me, was just a little bit much. It wasn't bad, it was just, like, compared to other episodes, it wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, I can relate.
I did also like that the little blurb that came up on the screen as it was, like, revealed. This was donated blood. It did also come up saying...
Transfusion.
Donated blood transfusions, yeah, like, doesn't really have a very long shelf life, so there's constant demand for blood donations, so go out and help, please.
Cammy, you said you had an episode that resonated with you?
Well, I mean, I was rather neutral on the episode. I think the main thing I really want to talk about and see what you guys think is that there were many people that reacted quite intensely to the episodes that focused on cancerous cells. Yeah, I heard a lot of discourse where people were upset because they felt like cancer itself was being portrayed as something sympathetic.
Yeah.
And and a lot of times people that felt that way had lost somebody due to cancer, which of course is very serious and very intense.
You're right.
And then on the other side, and to me, basically, I don't think that was the intent of the creators. At the same time, I can understand, that's a really big emotional thing, and I can understand not being comfortable with that. It was just a weird, not weird, it was just a kind of controversial point of discussion for a show that for the most part seems so like lighthearted and fun. And then on the other hand, I tried to bring up that discussion to see what people thought, and other people were like, you're fucking dumb if you didn't realize that it's just about cancerous cells, not cancer itself. And it's like, excuse you? I'm sorry that not everybody like knows biology super well. I think Cassie even stood up for me because it was like in a Discord chat and I felt really like talked down to. So yeah.
And the thing that frustrates me is that if they were stupid because they weren't paying attention too, because like regardless of whether this person that they were showing had cancer or not, it was showing some of the things that somebody who does have cancer would have trouble with. For example, nutrients being stolen or taken, so not being able to operate properly, and so on and so forth. Like, it was treated as a, like, really horrifying thing. And, I guess to put my, like, thought on the discourse, I don't think necessarily, because, like, I kind of felt bad for the cancer cell, but in the way that they portrayed it as a character.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing that people need to realize at the end of the day, is that these are anthropomorphized characters that are being made up to make a situation interesting for people to understand. I think that at the end of the day, they were just trying to show that this cell had a personality just like everybody else, and that its story was really real for it. But they did also make a point, and White Blood Cell says this at the end before, he kills the cell. He says, you've gone against what, keeps this body running, and if we let you live, this body will die, and therefore you cannot live. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
So they never at any point are like, hey, cancer is good for you.
Yeah.
Let's hang out with Cancer Coon.
So that's where I think that people are taking it a step too far. I think that they quote unquote made the cancer cell sympathetic to make a story beat, but they at no point were being sympathetic to this like actual disease. Or portraying it as a good thing.
Yeah, it's not like he spared the cancer cell, Yeah. Yeah.
I can definitely see why that would be a touchy subject for pretty much anyone that has had an encounter with cancer in one way or another, whether it was themselves or a loved one. But I agree, it was a story beat. It's not supposed to make you feel sympathetic for the disease, because it just was a moment in this series where they didn't want just that. Like, they gave personality to the viruses. It makes sense that they'd give personality to this disease as well. I also did like the somewhat sinister last line that the cancer cell said at the end, to remind you, like, you got rid of it this one time, but who knows, cancer could come back. I don't know how else they could have handled that episode, to be honest. And I think they did handle it pretty well.
Yeah, I don't feel like it was too much to address in the show either. It's just another thing that does exist within your body and happens within your body. So, yeah, I pretty much agree with y'all.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I felt bad for the cancer cell, so in a way it did have that response from me of, aw, poor cancer cell, it's not its fault that it ended up this way, because to be fair, like, it was hunted down from the minute it was what's it called? A mutation.
Yeah,
before
it's mutated cell.
Yeah, before it had done anything wrong. But at the point that it did what it did, it was doing bad things and it was destroying the body, whether it liked it or not. Or whether it was doing it intentionally or not. So that's just the point. It's unfortunate that people get cancer, but I think that the way they portrayed how cancer happened was actually pretty accurate. So.
Mm-hmm. And again, the show is supposed to be educational with like a splash of comedy and action added to the flair to it. So it's handled. It was handled very well in my opinion. And again, as Cass and all you all said, it's just like, at the end of it, I was like, fuck. Sorry, kid. You got a mutation, and you're fucking up the body, so you gotta go, unfortunately.
Dom, I wanted to ask you this because I know that we both really like this voice actor, but were you also very excited when you found out that the random cell that Akira Ishida was voicing was was a substantial character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made sense because it was like they
Yep.
would have just get him to voice, just some random like random bystander cell or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense, and it totally fits his his type, I guess.
What he can play.
Yeah.
Sorry, who?
Akira Ishida is the one who voiced Cancer, and he is amazing and prolific,
and he did a really good job of performing that role of like the anti-hero cell. Well, not anti-hero, antagonist cell. I apologize. He wasn't an anti-hero. He didn't do anything good. I'm mixing up my terms. I'm just like, my brain is dead right now. Did you have any spoilery thoughts about the show at all?
Not really. The only thing I've lived with someone who actually was dying from cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Very dark fact about me, I guess. But yeah, I guess I don't really feel like there's a big issue with the portrayal of cancer in that sense, just because it's not saying anything about the disease itself so much as just this particular situation that ended up causing this cell to do what it was doing. It's just, if that had been any other sort of I guess cell infection or mutation that caused the cell to do that, you could have used the exact same plot line and it would have worked, So I think people are just looking too deep into something that isn't really there. I don't know. Some people will do that, but to me it was not a malicious kind of statement about something much more sensitive than that. So
yeah, I think we're all pretty much on a similar page there.
On a much more lighter note, though, one kind of story beat that I'm an absolute sucker for is that flashback episode to when Red Blood Cell was still learning to be a Red Blood Cell
in school.
School, and she had that little encounter with a certain white blood cell in training, and the implications that it's the one that we've met. I'm a huge sucker for those kind of stories.
It was so cute, and even though it makes sense because they're all dressed uniform, I was so fucking mad when they were like, I wonder if I'll ever meet that one again. I was like, you dumb fucking cells!
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm alright.
You okay, Cammy? Do you need to go to the doctor, honey?
Oh gosh, oh gosh, this show makes me feel so guilty because I haven't had a checkup in years.
Preaching to the choir.
Better do that.
Okay, do we have anything else to talk about, or
I'm
good?
I'm good.
I think I'm pretty good. The only other thing that I can really point out again is just that how spectacularly the show uses its niche to just make the show so much more entertaining than a lot of other comedies, and it utilizes every aspect, the story, the characters, and its production to really make you have fun and learn. And honestly, I'm devastated. One more thing, I'm devastated this doesn't have a dub, because I wish I could show this to Warren when he got a little bit older. I think he would love this, but I literally probably can't show it to him or even suggest it until he's 13 or something.
Yeah.
Or 14 maybe.
Yeah, I would like to be able to suggest this to some of my nieces and nephews, because I think they'd get a kick out of it one way or another. But again, the fact that it doesn't have a dub makes that okay, I need you to be old enough to read subtitles now to
multitask the video and audio component, essentially.
Well, even just I wish I could show this to my family or my parents or something, but they don't like subtitles. That's the thing. You'll get people who are I don't want to watch anime 'cause it's subtitled.
Yeah.
And that's fair. And it's just like, God, the one time I kind of wish something had a dub and it doesn't.
Alrighty then. Well, with that being said, everyone, take it easy and have a good night.
See ya.
Oyasumi!
Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all. Love your body.
You love your body.
Come on now, everybody!
Everybody!
Oyasumi.